Armenian Women's Association, Haygan was established in Istanbul in 1919, and as far as we know, it's the first Armenian women's organization advancing the consciousness of Armenian women to their rights, to their civil, political, and educational rights. It had a bi-weekly publication called Haygan, which means Armenian woman, which was published in Istanbul from 1919 to 1933. Haygan was founded and edited by Hayganush Mark, who can be seen as the leader of this mobilization in this immediate post-war years in Istanbul for women's rights. She was born in Istanbul in 1882 into a modest family, but she did go to Armenian schools. And by the time that she graduated high school, she started working as a teacher. Her first editorial work pertains to this periodical called Zarik, edited it for 2 years. And when the war ends, under the safety of Allied occupation, she starts publishing Haygan. Haygan is the only Armenian periodical that remains open and continues uninterrupted publication from the immediate aftermath of war years, the armistice, the occupation years, up until the first years of the Turkish Republic. The only Armenian periodical that continues publication without changing its editor or without changing its name. And most likely it was because it's a women's journal that they did not care to further inspect. Haygan is a women's magazine in the sense that it has fashion pages, cooking, etiquette, child-rearing practices. Hayganush Mark made a conscious effort of freely providing her journal to the girls' schools. Haygan had a section where the readers could send their thoughts, contributions, and it was rather well populated. Haygan also had questions to the readers, to which the readers responded with letters, essays, commentary in general. From this kind of clues, we can fairly be certain that it had a following, for sure, amongst Armenian women. On the one hand, Haygan is a traditional Armenian product in the sense that it supports the Armenian family, it supports the Armenian church. It's not radical as such. It's not rejecting Armenianness, but it is also, especially in its first half, an explicitly political feminist journal. Hayganush Mark herself identified as feminist, and many of the contributors to the journal thought of themselves as feminists. For that, the journal included a variety of topics pertaining to history of feminism, history of women in general, or articles about contemporary feminists. From very early on, Hayganush Mark says that she was following the fiery, fierce demands of British and French suffragettes, and that she wanted to model her journal after that example. But they're also very cautious to make themselves into Armenian feminists. Like if you think about the name of the journal, it's Haygan. Hay comes before Gin at this moment, because they are very much also concerned with the Armenian national agenda of the time. They are a response actually to the existential crisis called genocide that just had happened. Many of the big names of the time, men and women, did write in Haygan. Haygan was distributed to various corners of the world, many diaspora centers from Boston to Cairo, even Japan most likely. It is part of the political discourse of Armenians at this time. But it had its radicalism. And in the first period of its existence, up until late 1922, Haygan did support the Allied occupation forces and did pursue what we now can call an anti-Turkish policy. It did talk about the reclamation of women and children from the Muslim households. It did support the territorial claim. It is secessionist. It's separatist. But at the time, it was not closed down in 1922-23, even before, because it was a women's journal and it was not taken seriously. After the establishment of the Turkish state in 1923, Haygan, like all other Armenian periodicals that survive, assumed a loyalist tone. This is a precondition for their existence, especially after the armistice years when they publicly supported the enemy of the Turks and they are seen as this disloyal, treasonous elements. So it transitions from being an enemy of the Turks to being a friend of the Turks. Despite the fact that it transitions though, the past haunts Haygan and is then closed down in 1933. The closing of the journal is a trauma for Hayganush Mark, despite the fact that most of her friends and collaborators in the journal left Turkey right before the entry of Kemalists to Istanbul in late 1922. She did not leave her city because, the way she talks about it, because she wanted to continue Haygan despite the changing conditions, dramatically changing conditions around them. She remains an important member of the Armenian community in Istanbul. She especially talks about other Armenian women writers, both in Istanbul and in the diaspora at this time. She never resumes her intellectual celebrity status after the closing of Haygan, but a group of women in Istanbul come together and they mark her 50th year in literature and journalism, where they honor her publicly. It's a big gathering. The patriarch of the time also attends. But most importantly, they make her write her autobiography. It's a book that's called Hayganush Mark, Her Life and Work, which was published in Istanbul in 1954 by the personal efforts of these young generation of women who thought she is someone of value that we should remember and pass to the new generations. And it was thanks to this book that in 1999, I first came into contact with this woman called Hayganush Mark. What is Haygan's legacy? Haygan seems to have made a difference in the consciousness of at least the next generation of Armenian women. We know that the second most important Armenian women's journal of the diaspora, Yeridasart Hayuhi, which means young Armenian woman, the editor, Siran Seza, was inspired by Hayganush Mark's Haygan. She starts publishing this women's journal in Beirut from 1934 up until 1967. Haygan is the last Armenian women's journal that was published in the Republic of Turkey. After its folding in 1933 and up until late 1990s, an Armenian feminism of that sort did not resurface, which is all related to the ways in which the Armenian minority related to the Turkish majority.